Hi guys, this is Katie Bunschoten, the president and founder of Certum Solutions, and I'm coming to you today with a really exciting video on how you can maximize your journey with Xero by setting it up correctly. And the first 5 things you should do once you set up your Xero accounting software in order to make sure you set it up for future success. We're going to ask that you collect some documents before we get started. There's just some things that you can do that'll make your path and make this video a little bit easier to work through. I'm going to list what those are, and then we're going to have a pause so that you have time to go get those, okay? You want to have your CP575 or your EIN letter. What is that? It's actually the same thing. The CP575 is what the IRS calls it. So it's the letter that when you start your business, it tells you what kind of company you are, what you're expected to file, and that kind of thing. It's also going to have your federal ID on it in case you have an EIN. If you don't have an EIN, it's not the end of the world. Check your 1040, see if you do a Schedule C and you may be doing business under your Social Security number, in which case that will do just fine. Moving on, your last tax return, in case you've been in business for a little bit. If you have not, you won't have one of these, you'll just have the letter. That's okay. Your last closed or adjusted financial statements, and make sure when you get those together that you've actually cleaned everything up, reconciled all your accounts, and they're nice and tidy. And you want to have it at a common sense cutoff date. Try not to pick January 13th. Pick December 31st. Your Secretary of State registration from your state. This may be needed if you have a sales tax certificate. You're required to register with your state if you are a business. 9 times out of 10, that is a yes. In fact, I don't know when it's a no, unless, again, you're freelancing. So make sure that you have that along with your sales tax certificate. If you are a retailer, that will be helpful when we're setting up your sales tax during this video. Your chart of accounts from your old system. Do you not have a chart of accounts because you're new? Well, guess what? We're going to help you with some privacy conscious AI. We used Lumo AI and drafted a really cool prompt that you can use to draft your very own chart of accounts. Now, throughout this video, it might get a little heavy, so make sure that if you feel like you need some extra assistance, you reach out to your qualified accountant or bookkeeper or us here at Certum Solutions to help you through, okay? Moving on, I'm going to go ahead and pause this video so we can put up a visual aid on those things that you want to collect before we dive much deeper, okay? I'll talk to you in a second. So we have our paperwork together. I hope you put aside a little bit of time for this so that we can do a really good job and you don't have to keep tweaking it after we're finished. So that being said, what are those 5 things that I talked about, right? Well, the first thing we're going to do is set up our basic settings along with our advanced settings in your Xero software. The second thing we're going to do is set up your chart of accounts. And in theory, you'll have your old financials, your old chart of accounts, or your handy dandy AI assisted chart of accounts that you've then looked at and made sure made sense before you used so that you can set up your chart of accounts. Make sure that once we do that chart of accounts, we're also setting up our conversion balances. So we kind of want to make sure everything either mimics your old system, or if you're a new business, you've got a system that's going to work for you long term, which makes that making sure this is a chart of accounts that works for me and my industry and my business very, very important, right? The third thing we're going to do are your invoice templates. I believe they also call them the branding themes. And so we're going to make sure that the invoice that you have set up is the one that's going to work for you. Fourth, we're going to talk about any third-party apps you might need and making sure that once you set up those apps, you reconcile your books and everything's hunky-dory and you don't have any weird things hanging out in space that's going to trip you up down the road, right? Then 5, it's time for a party. We're going to invite our users. Why do we not invite our users first? Because, my friend, users in your software, it doesn't matter if it's Xero or it's something else, a lot of times if you invite somebody to it, they may start looking around and they may make changes that you guys should have probably talked about and decided to make together. So the best practice is always to invite your users last once you're ready to go live, okay? And obviously these steps, they need to fit your situation. So if, make sure that If you need to adjust these, you need to reach out to us, whatever, you can go ahead and do so. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this video again, and I'm going to jump into a quick overview of Xero, and we're going to start with our settings, okay? While I do this, we're going to do yet another visual aid, and you're going to see the agenda for this video on that aid. Talk to you soon. Okay, guys, we're ready. So the first thing you want to do is when you're here on your Xero dashboard, if you don't see this dashboard, if you haven't set up Xero yet, go ahead and look at a link in our description. We've got a cool link for you that'll get you some great pricing on Xero. But we're going to start with accounting, and we're going to go to accounting settings, okay? Now, you can see a lot of these are here. You've got a lot of different settings that you can do. We're going to start out with some basic settings, and then we're going to dive into a couple trickier settings. I'm not going to touch on everything. If you have questions, let us know, and we're happy to help. So the first thing we're going to do is to go into your organizational settings, and this is where that EIN letter, and I should have mentioned a logo too, will come in really handy. So your display name is what you go by. If you have something called a doing business as that you filed with your state or your local county or what have you, we file ours with our county in North Carolina, but depending on where you are, you may have a different process. You may have a different what I do business as name, and you would just put that here. Your legal name is what you use on your taxes, and it needs to be precise. So make sure that this matches your taxes perfectly, okay? Industry, pick the best industry for you, okay? And then business structure, you're going to want to pick your structure. And this is where that tax form and your EIN letter also come into play and are really helpful. You notice, you look here and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of options, okay? If you have questions on which option you need to pick and you can't find an answer, reach out to us, okay? We're happy to help. Most of the time, the clients that I personally work with are my S Corps, who I love, and my single member LLCs. And I also work with a lot of sole proprietors and partnerships, and I actually work a lot with nonprofit. But nonprofit, you're going to have a couple tweaks to your system, so that's something that we probably want to cover in a different video. So for today, we're going to pick LLC taxed as an S Corp. We're going to go ahead and put in our business registration number, whatever registration number that you may have. For us, we're really focused on your EIN number. I know that with the Secretary of State, you may have different registration numbers there too, but for us, we're focused on this employer identification number, and you want to go ahead and put in a brief description of your business. Scrolling down, the rest of this starts to get a lot easier, okay? See, it starts off rough. It's almost like a Peloton video. You start off a little rough, and then you get that wind down period at the end. So you want to put in your mailing address, and then if it's same, your physical address is the same, you can go ahead and do that. You want to put in your phone number and your email and your website, your mobile, and if you have social for your business, which a lot of us do, go ahead and add those links, okay? And then you're going to save it, okay? That's your really basic settings, except I have to pick the country from the list. It's giving me the things. So that's what you're going to have to fill out. It's going to work because you picked out it picked out the thing. It's a demo. Okay, we'll fill it out. It's fine. Save. And I know sometimes you want to fill out just the minimum amount of things so you can get started. I really do like to spend my time ticking boxes to make sure, which I guess that makes sense because I'm an accountant, because I feel strongly that doing it right the first time, how many of us have heard that before, it saves you so much time down the road. Okay, so then we're going to follow our breadcrumb and we're going to click back on our settings button. Skip that users. We are not going to do that right now. And if you want, you can go ahead and pick on your email settings, okay? And you can fill this out, okay? And I'm going to once again click on my breadcrumb. Invoice settings we're going to work on in a little bit, and we have different options: check styles, online bill payments, 0 to 0, which is like their business network. And we have expense settings, reporting preferences, and all this. You can touch on all this, but I'm going to try to hit on the really important things during this video because I'm trying to keep people from falling asleep, and it's going to be hard enough as it is. So clicking on our advanced settings, this is where those sales tax documents that you pulled in the beginning are going to be really helpful. And you're going to want to pick, do I report my sales tax on a cash basis or accrual? Most companies I know actually do it on a cash basis, but some people do it on an accrual basis. This is going to reflect not only your reporting, but when you pay your sales tax funds owed. It is a trust tax, so it's really important to get this right and stay on top of that. Your tax ID number in this case should be your sales tax ID number. Most states issue a specific sales tax ID number. If you don't have that, it might be your EIN. Check with your accountant or your state to see what they want for your ID number if you don't have this sitting anywhere. Tax period is usually given to you by the government entities, your Department of Revenue or what have you. And what I've experienced is they tend to base it on your volume. So if you're a really quiet business, you might be annual. But if you're really busy, I'm an e-commerce business, I'm doing a lot of this, it might be monthly, okay? Then you want to pick your tax defaults. Are you tax exclusive or inclusive? Typically, you want to pick exclusive. And then what dates do you want to lock down? Okay. You want to make sure that you have your lock dates. Lock dates are super important no matter what software you have. And once you're done with this system, you don't want to pick lock dates right now because you're going to be setting up conversion balances and the rest. But once you do and you have a dependable closing schedule and you're moving forward in your Xero journey, make use of this because what it does, like at a minimum, when you file your taxes, lock it down. That way nobody can accidentally, fat finger a previous year and then put something in that's just messed up your reports. And then you get a call from your CPA saying, hey, why'd your numbers change when I was trying to do your reports this year? And you're going down a rabbit hole trying to figure out what they are and then what time zone you are. See how I did that? It just naturally segued back right to where we were before I went too far off the map. And then we'll go ahead and hit cancel there because we don't want to add anything at this time. So we filled out our financial settings. I'd make sure to check your currencies and check the rest of this. If you have Avalara, which we love Avalara, we highly recommend it, by the way. And also get with us if you need some more information. This is not hooked up, so I can't really demo that today. But reach out to us and we'll get you set up. And then you can set up some other things like if you have projects as part of your Xero, you can set up your cost rates and so on. Any tracking categories, which comes in really handy, especially for my nonprofits when we're tracking funds and things like that. But also for my for-profits, when you're trying to track multi-state sales, things like that, that you might want to track on a different kind of level. So moving on from there, we've now covered doing your initial settings. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and we are going to get started in just a moment on the next part. Okay, guys, thank you. I'm having to take breaks because I don't breathe like I'm supposed to sometimes because I get excited and then I'm like, hold on, let me breathe before I pass out. So we set up your financial settings. We set up your basic settings. Now we're going to jump into your chart of accounts. To me, your settings and preferences are critical, but they also then feed into everything else. One of the big list items that's going to be affecting everything you do from this step forward are your chart of accounts, okay? Now, Xero comes loaded with a default chart of accounts. Is every business the same? No, it's not, okay? So some of the things that you may do is when you're signing up for your business in the beginning, when you were getting that EIN letter, it might ask you for something called an NAICS code, which is a way of classifying businesses. If you don't have that, it's not a big deal. Are you a construction company? Are you a retailer? What have you? You can go ahead and set up your chart of accounts so that it makes the most sense for you and your type of business. Some of these accounts are going to be the same no matter what business you're in. Some are going to be different, so let's go ahead and take a look there. Now, this also is when you're going to be able to go over to your AI assistant. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new tab here and I'm going to put Lumo AI. And you can use whichever one you want. Just make sure that it's very private. For Lumo, that's the one I tend to use, but I also do really like using ChatGPT, Copilot, and a bunch of others, depending on the user case. If I'm doing stuff for work, I use Copilot a lot because it's more locked down, especially if you're doing things like checking emails or looking for spreadsheets where you do need to use your data. Most organizations can get you an enterprise level license so that that kind of information is protected. If you're using something retail out on the web, especially something like ChatGPT, be so stupid careful. Ask things in a very general way that does not give out any kind of personal information. In any case, we do have a prompt that we're going to attach to this video that will coach you through asking Lumo to help you come up with a chart of accounts. You can ask your own specific one. Just make sure you don't put any personal information in there. It's okay to put like industry this, industry that, but just don't put anything that's personally related to your business when you do that. So let's cut back over to our chart of accounts. You can add accounts by hand, okay, which is really the most straightforward way, especially if you don't have a lot to add, and it lists the kind of account that it might be. And this is where you want to have your old chart of accounts or your old financials next to you, so you can go down and mimic that, or have your new chart of accounts that you just built and mimic that. You're going to have a code, a numbering code. Not all businesses use numbering codes. You don't have to. It's kind of a throwback to when we have to do data entry really fast and we throw the numbers in, at least for me. Once you get to any kind of size, most accounts do have a numbering scheme to them. Then you want to have the short name for the account, and it does have your character limitations, a description in case you want to run a chart of accounts report later on and you want to know what each account is for and what it's used for. It's kind of like your little cheat sheet on what to use. And then are there any kind of tax settings you need to enable on this? And then these last three questions. Do you want it to show on your dashboard? Do you want to see the activity for this account on your dashboard, which we started out on that in the beginning? Do I want to show this as an option when I'm putting in expense claims? Do I want to enable payments to be posted to this account? Those are all things that you can consider while you're setting this up. If you have a lot to add, you can use the import function. Like if you have that account list from Lumo, we did set it up to go off of Xero's template, but if it doesn't work or if there's some problems, it is AI. And one of the wonderful things that I know gives me comfort is that they are not out to take over my job today. So, and there's reasons for that. So a lot of times they hallucinate, they get things wrong. So you want to make sure that you check for that. You can make sure that you have the right format by clicking on this example file where it says chart of accounts. Okay. Now I'm going to open this up. I'm just getting a little too excited about the scrolling today. So we want to open this up. So glad I cleaned up my computer before I did this video, so you don't get to see how messy my desktop was the other day. So this is what the template looks like. This is what yours should look like. You always want to make sure that this flat file mimics whatever you're entering the sample. So the samples mimic, okay? If it doesn't, just go ahead and edit it. And worst case, if you want all the guardrails up, you're the kind of person that goes, you know, to go bowling and you have the bumpers put up and you're actually my age, because I do that sometimes, then just go ahead and add them one at a time. So we'll cut back over to our balances. See, it'll say, what system are you importing from? Does it include account balances? And you just fill that out. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel. So one thing to keep in mind when doing chart of accounts with Xero, and that is the fact that regular accounts are slightly different than your bank accounts, because the bank accounts are connecting typically to your bank account outside of Xero, so they just keep those a little bit different. So I'm going to click on add bank account at this time, and what it does is it brings you up to a screen where you can actually look for the bank account you have. And if it doesn't exist, you can add manual accounts, but if it there you go. It's because it's a demo. So what it would do is it would just walk you through how to add that account. Okay, so we have that done. We've got our chart of accounts done. Now, next, we're going to once again click on our breadcrumb and go to settings. And we're going to scroll down and we're going to look for our conversion balances, which is when you want those financial statements most definitely. And they need to be closed and they need to be clean. If they have a few things you need to fix, that's okay. Just make sure whatever balance you're bringing over is the exact amount that is on those financials. Otherwise, you're going to create a whole lot of hurt for yourself down the road. So your conversion balances go off of something we do in accounting debits and credits. I'm sure you've heard of that if you have anybody in your life that is an accountant. We all get to have a very painful relationship with them in school when we're learning our T accounts. And the nice thing about software is that for the most part, we don't have to remember they exist sometimes. Unfortunately, that is the nature of accounting. And so we want our total debits to equal our total credits, and we want to go ahead and fill this out. If for some reason they don't match, it can help you basically force it to match. You don't really want to do that, but you can. And then at the end, definitely say lock balances as of this date. And what did we learn before that we are going to highlight again is July 16th is not a good conversion date. We want to do like December 31st of 2024, base it off of the same date that your financials end on, okay? Now, once you do that and you enter your conversion balances, it's going to enter those balances for all of your accounts as of that date. The very important thing to keep in mind as you go through the rest of your Xero journey, what we're doing in a few steps when we're doing our third-party software connections, if you have transactions that are dated before the conversion date, do not accept them in. That's for bank accounts, that's for credit card accounts, that's for any third-party software that you may connect that it may have transactions it pushes over. Don't bring in anything from before your conversion date. That's super important. Otherwise, we might have to do a little bit of cleanup. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this right there. And I'm going to go ahead and pause it and breathe some more and have a drink of water. And then we're going to get started on this next piece. Okay, I'm full of oxygen again. And we are good to go. So I hope that everybody's ready. Our next step is to go over our invoicing settings. And we're going to go ahead and we used our breadcrumb. This is a screen we're open to after our chart of accounts work. We're going to click on invoice settings, okay? Invoices are the face of your company to your customer, and they are also doing something that's very important for the survival of all of us in business, asking for money. So what do you want to do when you're asking for money? You want to make sure that you make your invoice look really, 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 really nice. It's a sign of respect for your customer, and also make sure that they know you're a professional and you set things up right the first time. So Xero calls these branding themes. You have your standard one, you've got a custom one that somebody's done, and then we have our default settings. And this is where we're going to focus right now. We're going to click on your default settings, and you're going to set your due dates. So when you have bills, what are the default due dates? When you have invoices, what are the default due dates? I say this a lot, but saying due upon receipt is really easy to not pay attention to. I always encourage people, even if it's due in 7 days, to have some sort of due date on their invoices. Automatic sequencing, which is a feature Xero has that I absolutely adore, is the ability to do a prefix really easily at the beginning in order to make sure that things are set up. So where you have INV, like before Xero, I'll be honest with you, I don't see the prefixing ability. I mean, you can do custom numbering in other systems, but a dedicated prefix settings piece. The last time I saw one was in an ERP or a larger, an enterprise resource planning software. So it's really cool when you get to have that automatic sequencing and you see those kind of features available in an accounting software. One great way that you can use this is if you want to have a way to really easily understand which invoices are from your old system and which ones are from your new system. Same thing with bills or whatever, or purchase orders. I mean, you can go ahead and add some kind of special prefix there so that everything's properly labeled and coded. Do you notice I'm probably the kind of person that has a collection of custom washi tape? Yes, I do. Sorry, that's TMI. So let's move on. So we're going to outstanding bills, and then when are our quotes expiring, okay? So you can put in all these default terms, making things easier on yourself in the future. So let's go ahead and save that. And then here's a special projects theme. We've got a standard, and then we have an invoice that they've put together. All of this stuff you can customize. It's really cool. And then let's go ahead and click on payment services, because this is also very much cool, very much needed. So unless you're sending out invoices and you don't want people to pay you, or you want them to snail mail something to you, you probably need to set up some payment gateways, and you'll do that here under payment methods. Okay, There's tons of available payment methods that work with Xero. Talk to your accountant, look in the third-party Xero app store, or look for different payment gateways that work for you. There's so many ways that you can find those, including looking in the payment services area. That being said, we've talked about invoice templates. Now I'm going to pause and we're going to talk about the third-party apps in Reconcile. And once again, we're all going to take a breathing break. Okay? I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay. Third-party apps. That is what we're working on. We've done a lot today, my friends, and I'm thinking probably you more than me because all I'm doing is talking. But I do go through this frequently, so I feel your pain at the moment, and we're here to help if you need us. If you want to see the apps that are already connected to your organization, you can go ahead and click on Connected Apps. Right now, this one doesn't have any connected apps. I'm going to go ahead and click back on my breadcrumb. And I'm going to go back to my settings, okay? So since we don't have any connected apps, I will show you where you can find those and connect them in future. I like to do the connected apps as early on in your software journey as you can, because what's going to happen? Everybody thinks it is a really smooth process. Nothing's out there that's glitchy. Well, I'm sure we've all heard of Murphy's Law. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen. Usually there's at least one or two things you have to tweak once you connect an app to your software. So it's nice to get that out of the way before we invite all of our friends to it in our next step. So I did keep the Xero App Store open. The link to the App Store is right here in the top, apps.xero.com, and we'll include this in the description. And then you can go ahead and search for apps based on your industry, based on what needs you have. It's a really cool store. There's a lot of great options. If you do things like you have heavy inventory or you have point of sale systems, you may have systems that were in place way before you started using Xero. Make sure that you connect them now to make things easier on you in future. This helps you not have as much manual entry to do. It makes sure things are reconciled to each other, and it just keeps life simple, which is the goal, right? So once you set up your third-party apps, one of the things I also like to say is make sure that you research the third-party app and you follow whatever directions they have for integrating it to your Xero software. Most of the time, they're going to have a support document that will tell you exactly how to do it the right way to try to keep Murphy's Law from happening, although it does have a nice little way of sneaking in there anyway. Okay, so once you have your app set up, once you've connected everything to your Xero, we're getting there. Aren't you excited? I'm excited. Okay, so once we have all that done, you want to go ahead and you want to reconcile all your books and all your accounts to make sure that everything's tied out. And I'll go ahead really quick and show you how to do that, but it's not technically part of my 5 things. I just want to go ahead and make sure you see where you can reconcile some of those accounts. We're not going to do it, but we'll then move on to our next step. If you have questions about how to reconcile, there's some great videos out there, and we're also more than happy to help walk you through that. Okay, so we are ready for the next step. We're going to go ahead and take a quick look at how we can reconcile our accounts here in Xero. One thing to keep in mind when you're going through this process is that in Xero, you mainly reconcile bank accounts. So when you're cutting over from that other system, you'll want to go ahead and use what some people call a 10-column worksheet, or just use Excel basically and make sure that your accounts match and that you have supporting documentation for anything on your general ledger account. And I'll show you a report that you can use to do that. But first, we're going to go ahead and reconcile your cash transactions. So we're going to go ahead and click on the bank accounts button. And what you'll see is that it brings up all of your bank accounts here, and then you'll go ahead and you'll click the reconcile button. So Xero's different than a lot of accounting software where it does reconcile kind of on a live basis. So if you go ahead and reconcile these 29 items, you can go ahead and open that up. Okay, and then you can reconcile a period if you want to as well. So keep in mind, we're looking here, we see this transaction, and basically we're giving this a common sense, a sniff test or whatever. So you're going to make sure that these two things make sense. This check number makes sense, this makes sense, and you hit OK. You want to make sure this makes sense, that's okay. And so you want to make sure that any accounts that you brought in when you hooked up your bank accounts to your chart of accounts, that's all here, that's all empty and all reconciled. Then the next thing that you can do just to make sure everything came over okay is to go to your favorite reports if you have it starred. If not, you go down to all or go up to all reports and find your general ledger account, okay? For me, I picked a general ledger summary, but you can pick a general ledger detail as well. And I'm going ahead and I'm changing my date column to last fiscal year, so it'll show up with a little bit more detail. And I'm going to go ahead and click my update button. Okay, so you can then export this to Excel, take a look at the accounts, make sure all the balances make sense, and you've got information to back them up. So, for example, if you're trying to reconcile a depreciation, accumulated depreciation account, if you have one, you want to go ahead and use some sort of supporting schedule or worksheet that shows that balance matches what's on that schedule, and you tick that off. Basically, it's a test to make sure when you brought everything over from your old system, it all came over correctly. If it didn't and you have to adjust things, that's okay. It happens to the best of us. Another report you can look at is your balance sheet, because these accounts that we're looking at reconciling are all going to show up on our balance sheet. And if this report is more comfortable for you than the general ledger report, I say go for it. Look at your balance sheet and pay close attention to all of your perpetual accounts here and make sure that they all make sense and the balances are correct. If they are not, before you pass go and add your new users, make sure you fix any of those issues. Okay? So, with that being said, step 4 is complete. We are getting ready for liftoff, and we'll go ahead and continue with step 5. Okay, water, breathing, we're good. We're moving forward. This is, classically long for me. I don't usually do these really long videos anymore, but we are today. My record is 2 hours and 45 minutes, but no one's counting, right? The last thing you want to do once you've done all these steps, everything's tied in, your third parties are connected, you've checked your chart of accounts, you feel like things are good. There's still other things that you can tweak, but for today, we've really done the heavy stuff, okay? You want to then invite your users. Okay, so when we go to add our users, we're going to go ahead and click on any of the buttons that'll get us to our settings. So for right now, I'm picking accounting, but any of your settings buttons, in case you didn't notice, will actually bring you to the same place. And we're going to go ahead and click users. Now, what do we need to keep in mind when we're adding users? We want to make sure that the user permissions that they get are going to be applicable to their position and that they make sense. Okay, so once you're in this area, you'll be able to go ahead and add your users. You're able to go ahead and let everyone know that they're invited, which they'll find out because they're going to get an invitation anyway. You want to make sure that the user permissions you set are applicable to them. Don't give somebody that's entering sales out there, make sure you don't give them payroll settings and the rest. And that's kind of it. Once you've invited everyone, if you want, I know I would, have a little bit of a go live party and maybe, have some fun with it. You are now set up in Xero. You are now ready to go. You're live, man. And if you have any questions, you just need to reach out to Certum Solutions or your accounting professional. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and thank you again for your support.